So is it just me, or is this whole world getting a bit crazy, right? Now, I want to make this video about the golden rule, as it's called. But before I get to that, let me share with you what brought me to being inspired to make this video. So about a week and a half ago, I was out of town for a wedding. And I had a number of different, just great conversations, catching up with old friends and a bunch of different people there. And I got to chatting with some people about how I'm making, I'm doing a YouTube channel. And one of the conversations that stood out, and actually let me just mention that I asked a number of different people what it is they would say to humanity. If you had the audience of 7+ billion people right now, and you could say something to them, give a message, what would it be? And one of the conversations that stood out, and let me also mention that a lot of people said similar things, like people need to be nicer to each other, people need to just stop freaking out about money, people talked about how this whole world is being controlled by the few, which stood out to me, obviously, if you listen to any of my other videos. But one of the conversations that stood out was from the mother of the bride. And I had a real nice, candid conversation with her, and I asked her, look, if you could say anything to humanity, what would it be? And she said, literally, people need to start being more kind to one another. And it got me thinking about the golden rule, as it's commonly called. Treat people the way you want to be treated, so to speak. And now, when I was in my undergrad, I got my minor in religious studies. Couple reasons. One, I needed a GPA booster, and I knew that a lot of these classes, according to ratemyprofessor.com, was like easy A's. You could take a lot of them online and do discussion board posts. But that aside, I learned a lot of things in the process. And I also wanted to take those classes because I just find it interesting that most of the world's population is religious. Now, me personally, I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic. I consider myself non-religious. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe that we're spiritual beings inhabiting a body, and that essentially, I say that nature is my church and love is my religion. And I'm a seeker of truth, and that there's a lot of truths within religion. But there's a lot of things that, the most common religions in the world just seem to omit or don't discuss or, so I'll just leave it at that so you know where I'm coming from. But are you aware that the 13 most common religions in the world, that the most simplest foundation of every single one of these 13 most common religions is literally the golden rule? Now, they all word it a little bit differently, and let me give you some examples. And I know that the print on there is a little bit too small to see, so let me bring you up this one that just shows 9 of them. So you can see that they all have something similar. So Christianity, as an example, a quote, straight from Scripture is, "In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law of the prophets." So let's skip over to Judaism. "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole of the Torah. All the rest is commentary," which I think is pretty interesting if you think about it. It's saying that this is the most important thing, right? Hinduism. "This is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you." Islam. "Not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself." That's from the Prophet Muhammad. Buddhism. "Treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful." They all basically say the same thing, that be nice to others just as you want people to treat you, and everything will be fine. And you have say the 10 Commandments as an example, or different rules and guidance that all these religions detail and outline, that ultimately if you just follow the golden rule, everything works out, right? But the problem in that, so many people, the world's population is religious. The percentage of this varies. I've tried to look. Most people believe in a divine being. Not everyone's religious, so keep that in mind. But is it just me, or are you must know people that are quote-unquote religious. They don't seem to follow the golden rule on even close to a regular basis, right? Even good people that you think very highly of, you see that their egos get the better of them. Maybe more often than not, right? And one of the things that comes back to is a lot of people say respect is a two-way street, right? Now, what I'm saying right now, I myself have also followed a significant majority of my life kind of saying the same thing. I believe being nice to others. There's been plenty of times where I've been nice to others that weren't very nice to me. But there's been a whole bunch of times where others have crossed my path and I crossed it right back over to teach them, right? Teach them a lesson. When people cross you, you teach them that it's not nice and you shove it right back in their face, right? So, that doesn't work. The ego versus ego is an unwinnable battle that only causes more suffering. And I remember hearing back in the day, people say, look, by being mean to others only, it's hurting yourself in the process. And I always kind of laughed it off. I'm like, or scoffed it off. It'd be like, well, that's just something people say to try and encourage others to be nice, right? But think about that. When people cross you, when people disrespect you, do you know what you're witnessing? You're witnessing a time capsule within them, within themselves, their own life experiences, because we're all a product of our experiences, and we've had millions, yes, millions of life experiences. And what you're witnessing when someone treats you poorly is how others have treated them in the past. Think about that. Am I wrong? When you reflect on it, you'll see just how true it really is. When you get to know people, like there's been a couple people I've become very close friends with that when we first met, we didn't really hit it off, didn't really see eye to eye, and we kind of weren't very nice to each other. And as we got to know each other, we realized that we both had flaws within ourselves, and that we come from backgrounds that maybe, we had certain life experiences where, we felt we had been wronged, and you carry those things, but it's a subconscious thing, right? So when you start to realize, when you become aware, as I say that I am now, that I'm aware, I'm awakened, so to speak. I mean, every day is, I feel like I'm waking up more and more every day. But you get to this point where you start to figure out what the underlying issue with humanity is that, say, these 13 most common religions, how many of them discuss in detail to their followers the ego, the workings of the human brain? That essentially, guys, we are an animal species, and just like any other animal species, we have personality characteristics. And part of the ego has to do with denial, projection, that when people judge others, for example, which is something humans do all the time. Even if they don't do it out loud and talk crap about others behind their back, in their brain, in their thoughts, they'll think, oh, look at that person, look what they're wearing, look what they're doing. Look how that person reacted to that. Wow, why would they behave that way? It is my belief that we all are just operating based on the experiences that we had, and that because we've walked in our individual shoes for our entire lives, no one can truly appreciate you, knowing or the experiences that you've had and why you act a certain way in certain circumstances. And that essentially, going back to the ego, that most of us weren't trained. We weren't trained in school about this. We weren't trained in religions. Our politicians don't discuss it. The news media doesn't discuss the ego and how we can train ourselves to identify that, when people are behaving like dickheads, like assholes, like fucktards, excuse my language, but just trying to cater to every bit of all my audience, that essentially you're witnessing how they've been treated by others, and they're just oblivious to it. Looking back at my own life and the times that I've treated others poorly, I didn't think I was treating others poorly. I thought I was justified. I'm telling them this because of what they just said or did to me. So they need to know that respect is a two-way street, and if you're going to treat me poorly, now you know what's going to happen. Like looking back, how much suffering did I cause others? How much suffering has any of us caused others by simply responding to their own ego, right? And how did it ever work out good? Even if at the time someone crossed you unjustly and you crossed them back and you get the win over them, essentially. You overpower their personality and you shut them up or whatever. Did you feel good about it in the long term? Isn't there like a subconscious part of you that realized that person was having a really weak moment and you pounded them? Basically, where I'm going with this, and going back to my friend's mother who says the whole world needs to be more kind to one another. Guys, you are not helping this world by treating others poorly and responding to their own ego or choosing to be of the philosophy that respect is a two-way street. That for this world to change, it takes all of us, and that you need to be the change that you want to be in the world, right? Think about that. It only takes critical mass. I'm not suggesting here that 7 billion people need to start being nice, because I know it's not going to work like that. There's a sense of balance in the universe that as above, so below, that there is an opposite to everything. So you're going to have nice people, you're going to have unhappy people, angry people. But you can have enough people choosing to treat others the way you would like to be treated, even when you come across as a jerk. Like, have you ever been the person to maybe cross somebody else? You were having a moment, you've had a bad day, you kind of, I don't know, were rude to somebody unknowingly by accident, you know, and it's hard because this is part of the denial thing. People don't want to believe that they've crossed others. They don't want to believe that they have been at fault. It's part of the human brain, guys. This is like the workings of it. I say that it's the software of the hardware. Our brain's the hardware, ego's the software. That denial is a hell of a thing. And most of this world thinks that they're perfectly good people and have done no wrong. Yet most of this world has actually wronged others. It's just part of the human psyche. It's part of the game that we're in, and that we're all screwing over other people, and some of us just do it more than others. So we project. We think, oh, well, this person does it worse than I do, so, they need to worry about it, not me. So the long story short is that the awareness of that Look, namaste. Realizing that what's in others is in you. The ability for you to be angry with other people based on their actions is because something within what they did, their actions, is in you as well. That you are capable of it. And maybe you've done those negative actions in the past. I'm speaking very philosophical from a very philosophical standpoint right now. So I hope you're with me, and I hope this is making sense, because this is completely unscripted. So to close this up, reflect on the times that you have wronged others and others have wronged you. And think about how in the future, moving forward, you can help make this world a better place by actually living the golden rule. That when others cross you, say something like thank you. Like if someone disrespects you, says something rude, just say thank you. You'll be amazed at how people react. It will often bring them back to planet Earth. They'll realize, wait a second. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. I just want to give you all something to think about. But I'm Jimmy. My YouTube channel is Bright Insight. Like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. And I have many other videos to come on a whole wide variety of topics. Take care, everybody.